the time the hunter cadres of the Tau Empire surge into battle, their commanders already know the surest path to victory. Feral Kroot, cunning pathfinders, and the eagle-eyed pilots of the air caste have mapped every inch of the engagement area. The foe's every weakness is already exposed. From the first shot fired, the Tau demonstrate strategic coordination and unity of purpose, so powerful that they are weapons in their own right. TIE-7 Devilfish transports deliver heavily equipped and highly trained warriors precisely where they are needed. Devastating artillery walkers like the KV-128 Storm Surge hammer the enemy lines. Nimble combat aircraft fill the skies while alien auxiliaries unleash their own unique talents of battlecraft. Amidst it all, it is ever the battle suits that deliver the most punishing blows. Marvels of Earth-cast technology, these single-pilot war suits drop from the skies on plumes of fire, vanish behind layers of advanced camouflage, or supercharge their systems with experimental reactors, all while laying down devastating fusillades of fire. So have countless worlds fallen to the expansionist armies of the Tau Empire, who do not hesitate to secure ideological acquiescence beneath the muzzle of a gun. Now, in the wake of the Great Rift's opening, more worlds in their path than ever before stand cut off and poorly defended. The Tau will gladly see them all brought, willingly or otherwise, into their burgeoning empire. First Contact. Located far out upon the eastern fringe of Imperial space, Tau is a small world with a single continental landmass and a swift and magnificent sunrise. It has been the scene of strife and great conflict in its time, and has also served as the cradle of a civilization that even now bears its light ever further into the darkness between the stars. The Tau began like countless other sentient species. They progressed from primitives to herder tribes inhabiting the savanna plains and mountains of their homeworld. They developed language, tools, and, of course, weapons. What singles their tale out is the speed with which these advances came. The Tau are a short-lived species by human standards, but strive with dynamism that sees each generation achieve remarkable progress. During their early days, the ancestors of the Tau rapidly outpaced their mortal growth with their practical and martial development. Inevitable disaster followed. The Tau had long been diverging both physically and mentally. Strong and warlike plains hunters, tough, skilled builders and settlers, loquacious merchants and diplomats, winged messengers, each became entrenched in their nature as fortresses rose and black powder weapons proliferated. Tribal alliances formed, wars erupted. So began the Mon Tau, a dark time of conflict that looked destined to drive the Tau to extinction. It is a shadow the modern Tau fear even now, for it speaks of a darkness within their collective psyche, whose resurgence they will always dread. According to Tau myth, the end of the Mon Tau was marked by strange lights in the skies. These were first believed to portend the end of days. Yet, instead they seem to have announced the coming of the ethereals. With them came destiny. The first documented sighting of this strange new breed of Tau was at Phio Town, a place where a mighty fortress lay besieged. Ethereals walked calmly out of the night and compelled the leaders of both sides to sit down and agree a peace where none had before been possible. Legend tells how the ethereals spoke long with the assembled Tau, who, until so recently, had sought one another's deaths. The ethereals told of a shared destiny. They projected a sense of undeniable authority. And in the light of a new dawn, they secured alliance and cooperation between the warring factions. Countless similar tales abound, even if some are apocryphal or have been exaggerated. Still, it cannot be argued that, whatever their mysterious provenance, the ethereals ended the Mon Tau and united their species in a single goal. This goal was the Tau Va, or greater good. From that time onward, the breakneck pace of Tau advancement became one of their race's greatest strengths. Guided by the Council of Ethereals, the Tau adopted a rigid caste system that saw the different tribes arranged and valued by their strengths. The Earth caste were builders and craftsmen, and as their technology base advanced, became engineers and scientists. The Air caste continued to act as scouts and messengers, serving eventually as their race's pilots and spacefarers. Those tribes who had specialized in mercantile trade or diplomacy became the Water caste, whose administrative influence flowed through their society and kept the wheels of progress turning. Stubborn and aggressive, the warlike plains dwellers took the longest to embrace the teachings of the ethereals. Yet even they eventually acceded and became the Fire caste. In time, they would graduate from being their race's huntsmen to being their standing military. And it was during these early centuries that they adopted the teachings of the Code of Fire that still regulate their conduct to this day. This unified drive towards progress saw the Tau establish orbital void cities, and then push outwards to claim new worlds and systems for their own. Such swift advancement also subjected the Tau race to unbelievable stresses and challenges, encountering alien species, many of which proved hostile and had to be fought for survival. The constant push towards progress and territorial expansion that required selfless dedication from every member of Tau society. The burning need for fresh resources to power the endless toil, the burden of believing in their people's destiny to save the galaxy from itself. Such stresses have proven too much for many burgeoning empires, even when spread out far over greater periods of time. Yet the Tau almost seem to relish each fresh hurdle, though they may suffer and bleed and pay dearly for every step forwards. Still, in the service of the greater good, the Tau move ever forward, and they do so gladly. The greater good. The Tau Va can be summed up simply. It is the belief that the individual life of any given member of the Tau Empire is of less importance than the needs of the empire itself. Its adherents gladly expend incredible efforts, endure shocking hardships, and lay down their lives without a second thought for the furtherance of this greater good. Ever since the coming of the ethereals, Tau society has been focused upon fulfilling a singular destiny. With very few exceptions, every Tau believes wholeheartedly in giving all that they have to the furtherance of the greater good. Moreover, they believe that it is their duty and privilege to carry this creed out into the stars and unify every sentient species beneath their secular faith. The Tau put great store in every achievement and personal sacrifice that advances this goal. Those who excel in the service of the greater good are lauded, while those rare few who allow personal hubris, vanity, or selfishness to come first are vilified. The Tau Va has many apparent benefits. Thanks to the unstinting efforts of Earth-caste miners, engineers, and architects, the cities of the Tau septs are clean and orderly. They are technologically advanced places, well protected from hostile environments and enemies alike. Energy shields and vast habitation domes hold indigenous life forms and perilous weather systems at bay. Railguns, ion cannons, fire-cast garrisons, and hive-like drone ports watch over the habitation zones, science complexes, cultural centers, military academies, water-cast diplomatic embassies, and trade hubs. Air-cast spaceports and other bustling centers that fill the cities. Solid light sculptures, dancing fountains, and peaceful parklands grace even the meanest settlements. Within their bounds, alien races of many sorts rub shoulders in peace, with the Tau moving through them as first amongst equals. There is little of what other races might consider opulence, for the Tau see such self-oriented displays of wealth as wasteful. Yet equally, there is nothing of the poverty or squalor that afflicts most other races. Of course, all who dwell in these cities have their places within Tau society predetermined by caste and by the orders of the ethereals. They toil for the greater good while surrounded by carefully nuanced propaganda that extols the glories and victories of their eminently superior empire. The Tau and their allies have little say in their own personal destinies, for, by the command of the ethereals, these are subsumed into the single great destiny that they all must serve. Yet it would not occur to most Tau even to question the serenely issued edicts of their ruling caste. The word of the ethereals is law, and no true Tau or ally of their empire would seek to contradict it. The greater good demands the tireless expansion of the Tau Empire. It is not enough to wait for the peoples of the galaxy to come in search of enlightenment. The Tau feel genuine compassion for those races unfortunate enough to still toil in darkness and ignorance. They believe the message of the greater good must be brought to all, and every civilization ushered into the wonder of its light. So it is that they forge ever outwards, growing their empire's borders in a series of grand expansions, and establishing new colonized systems which they call septs. Each sept is named for its capital planet, or sept world, and can include myriad other worlds, moons, void stations, and orbital structures. Drones lead the way out into the void, tiny lights streaking through the immensity of space as they broadcast messages of hope and unity. Whenever a drone detects signals from a sentient species, it alerts the Tau and beckons their colonization fleets hence. From this point, the Tau observe a specific series of protocols. First contact is always made by ambassadors of the water caste, who entreat peaceful negotiations with the newly discovered aliens. Silver-tongued and fervently committed to spreading the message of the greater good, the ambassadors do all they can to convince their hosts of the benefits of becoming part of the Tau Empire. Should the world's inhabitants accept this invitation, even should such acceptance take generations to arrive at, then all is well. Tau colonization begins at once, and often the indigenous peoples are peacefully relocated deeper into the Tau Empire, where they can be educated in the glory of the Tau Va. Their skills and worth are assessed, just as their former homeworld and its resources are absorbed into the Empire. So too are the new aliens placed where they will best benefit the greater good. Regrettably, From the Tau standpoint, anyway, many races reject these diplomatic advances. Such beings cannot be left to threaten the Empire in their ignorance. The Fire Caste now come to the fore, readying invasion plans that will most swiftly see the ingrates pacified. When the Tau attack, they come suddenly from the firmament with overwhelming speed and firepower, seeking to prove to their enemies the hopelessness of standing against an empire unified by the greater good. So is the lesson of acquiescence taught through force. Yet even in victory, the Tau are not cruel. They seek to preserve what they can both of the enemy's world and of the enemy themselves, for both will be valuable assets to the empire once conquered. As the ethereals say, it is not the fault of those who are blind that they cannot yet see. Forced integration and re-education follows, even as the Earth Caste set to work healing the planet's battle scars and resettling it as the Empire's latest outpost of enlightenment and culture. So have the Tau pushed back the darkness beyond their boundaries for many centuries. So now do they continue. In the tumult and darkness following the opening of the Great Rift, known to the Tau as the Montyeva, or Devourer of Hope, there are more worlds and species lost to darkness and terror than ever before. These the Tau will rescue, no matter the cost, and will bring them into the glorious light of their burgeoning empire. Caste system. So completely have the Tau absorbed the concept of the greater good that it has come to shape their entire society, and even their physical and mental makeup. Long now have they been divided into castes, each with its own strictly delineated responsibilities to the empire and to the other castes. The Tau caste system transforms their society from countless individuals to a coherent whole, comprising 4 hard-working component elements directed in all things by a 5th. Tau are born into their castes, live their lives by the tenets of that caste, and all hope to eventually pass away having furthered its contribution to the greater good. The ethereals permit no interbreeding between Tau of different castes. They further monitor the development of each as a careful gardener tends to their plants, paring away weak or recessive shoots while ensuring the healthy limbs are given all they need to thrive. The Tau themselves do not question the righteousness of this system. It is as natural to them as the progression of day and night, or the action of gravity or time. They accept all of the societal and personal restrictions placed upon them by their ethereal masters as necessary for the greater good, and think no more about them. Even within their caste, most Tau have their place marked out for them as need dictates. That said, the Tau Empire is, broadly speaking, a meritocracy in which excellence is recognized with progress. In the Fire Caste, this takes the form of advancement through the ranks and brings honors such as piloting a battle suit or rising to command armies. By comparison, a skilled Earth Caste Tau might be plucked from a more menial role and propelled into a lifetime of scientific or technological experimentation, or the architectural design of grand structures. One might be forgiven for thinking that Tau society would frown upon individuals taking pride in their achievements, but it is not so. Rather, each individual is encouraged to derive the greatest satisfaction from their works, military conquests, new discoveries, and the like, with two crucial caveats. The first is that all such labors are equally as important to the empire, and that a humble laborer who finishes raising a wall should be prized just as highly by her fellows as should an ace pilot who shoots down many enemy fighter crafts, or a fire caste chasseur who conquers a world for the empire. The second is that all such personal glories are won for the empire, not for the individual. This subtle but crucial emphasis ensures that the vast majority of Tau strive their whole lives with willing enthusiasm to achieve all they can for the Tau Va, and goes some way to preventing factionalism or damaging rivalries between the castes. The Tau have a tendency toward short lives when compared to the average human. Coupled with their lightning-fast evolutionary advances and the rigidity of the caste system, this has led them, over countless brief but bright burning generations, to diverge into something closer to 4 independent subspecies. All are still recognizably Tau. They are humanoid in form, with hoof-like feet and blue skin, whose shade depends upon their world's proximity to its nearest star. However, no Tau could ever mistake a member of another caste for their own, and indeed even their physiology differs quite markedly. Those who have fought the Tau Empire and become used to the comparatively burly and aggressive fire caste would be surprised at the sight of a squat, broad earth caste Tau, an elegant and swift-witted trader of the water caste, or, strangest of all, one of the willowy air caste, with their etiolated build and gangling limbs. One of the few apparent racial constants that unites all the castes is an absolute lack of sensitivity to the Empyrean. There are, seemingly, no psychers amongst the Tau, nor any tendency towards the uncontrolled mutation that the warp's touch brings. It is unclear to what degree the ethereals know of or comprehend the hellish dimension that roils beneath the skin of real space, but it is readily apparent that the race they rule understand nothing of it. In many ways, of course, this is a blessing, for the touch of the warp is wholly corrupting. Yet, in others, for a people pushing ever further into a dark and violent galaxy, where the power of chaos is on the rise, it is a perilous blind spot. The fire caste constitutes the warriors of Tau society. It is the duty of these soldiers to protect the other castes and to eliminate any foes foolish enough to oppose the will of the Tau Empire. Long ago, the fire caste originated from the hunter tribes of the plains. Even then, they were already the strongest and most aggressive of all the Tau. Through the years, the fire caste's desirable traits of strength and physical size have continued to increase, and any weak strains are quickly weeded out. They are guided by an enduring creed known as the Code of Fire, which stresses martial arts, loyalty, and merciless war tempered by wisdom. The fire warriors spend their entire lives either in battle or preparing for it, constantly honing their tactics and relentlessly working to improve their combat skills. The Earth caste comprises the artisans, engineers, and laborers of the Tau. It is by far the most populous of the castes. It is they who construct machines, raise colonies and cities, and provide food for the rest of the Tau Empire. Without the Earth caste, the farms would not produce, and the factories would stand idle. The menial levels of the Earth caste are sturdy laborers who toil ceaselessly. Its foremost minds, by comparison, become engineers and scientists, inventors beyond compare. It is they who fashion the sophisticated technologies and forward-leaping innovations that are so prevalent throughout every level of Tau society, and who ensure that the fire caste have the weapons they need to fight their wars. Water is the element that can be found in all living things, flowing continuously to allow life to function. Such is the comparison oft repeated by the bureaucrats, politicians, diplomats, and administrators of the water caste. In essence, they are the civil servants who make Tau society run smoothly. The water caste make up the merchants, traders, and ambassadorial corps moving fluidly among the other castes and any aliens incorporated into the Tau Empire. They assuage fears and ensure all negotiations are handled with great efficiency. This subset of the Tau has always displayed a gift for linguistics, a talent that has grown ever more refined over time. The water caste are able to learn alien languages with ease and show a remarkable aptitude for understanding and emulating even the most nuanced aspects of social, religious, and political interaction. In ancient times, the Tau of the air caste were messengers, but now they fill the role of pilots and spaceship crews, transporting goods and warriors to where they are needed, or pushing back the boundaries of known Tau space. The air caste, sometimes called the invisible caste, are the unseen force, for they rarely, if ever, set foot upon planets. Most air caste Tau spend the majority of their lives in void transit or aboard space stations. Their bodies have evolved to their new circumstances, no longer bearing wings as they once did, but instead exhibiting longer and lighter frames in response to their low-gravity existence. Hollow bones allow the pilots of the air caste to withstand great acceleration, though they are conversely weak and ungainly on worlds with even a moderate gravity. In battle, the air caste rain death from the skies, while crewing either attack fighters or bomber craft in support of the planet-bound fire warriors. Ethereals. The ethereal caste stand apart from their people. They rule the Tau as a wise and patient adult might guide spirited, if occasionally wayward youths to realize their truest potentials. Sometimes serene and benevolent, other times hard and stern as stone. It is the ethereals who divine the needs of the greater good, and who decree the ways in which the Tau Empire may bring it about. The ethereals rule Tau society. They are longer lived than the other castes, and this gives them greater scope of vision. It is they who determine the goals of their empire, and who guide their people's feet upon their chosen paths. For their part, the Tau view the ethereals with a reverence bordering on the religious. Secular rulers, priesthood, grand galactic strategists, the ethereals are all of these things to their race, and the respect they are paid is absolute. The ethereals perform a unifying role within the Tau Empire. They take counsel from senior members of each caste, but ultimately, all decisions are theirs to make, and responsibilities theirs to be borne. Ethereals must motivate. They must lead, encourage, or rein in the Tau of the other castes as need dictates. They do all this with the absolute confidence of those who know they possess a monopoly upon the truth. Amongst their most important duties is the orchestration of propaganda that is beamed endlessly across the Tau Empire to spread hope and determination. It is a small wonder that Tau interstellar communication technology has seen advancement every bit as meteoric as that of their void craft or military hardware. To their own people, the ethereals are infinitely wise rulers, ruthless when they must be, but ultimately altruistic. To outside species, they cultivate a more aloof appearance. They do nothing to dissuade more primitive alien races from defying them, or more recalcitrant people from fearing them as all-knowing and perilous to anger. No one, neither Tau nor alien observer, knows how the ethereals exert such unquestioned authority over their people. This is due in part to the suicidal lengths Tau will go in the defense of their ethereals. Rare indeed is the capture of these revered beings, for entire hunter cadres would rather go to their willing deaths than know the crushing shame of having allowed their assigned ethereal to be captured or slain. Lack of experimental subjects has not stopped imperial biologians from speculating upon the mechanisms of ethereal rule, of course, discarding as facile the suggestion that the Tau simply believe unswervingly in their Xenos creed. Such magi have suggested everything from veiled psychic domination or pheromonal control to even more outlandish theories like mass racial hypnosis or the deployment of invisible organic nanites. Whatever its method, the ethereal's effect upon their people is very evident in battle. There, they evoke the elemental truths to inspire nigh supernatural feats of accuracy, courage, speed, and resilience. Their mere presence evokes something like zealotry in other Tau, and countless desperate defeats have been transformed into improbable victories thanks to the leadership of an ethereal. On Va is the oldest and highest ranking of the Ethereal Council. His voice is law across the entire Tau Empire. His hand is visible in many of his people's greatest achievements. On Va is revered almost as a living deity, and the mere rumor of his arrival is enough to double Earthcast production quotas, propel military conquests to their victorious conclusion, and trigger countless Kai Rhoda of somber yet jubilant ceremonies. Despite his irreplaceable value to the Empire, On Va is often seen upon the forefront of Tau military campaigns. He does not seek to fight himself. Rather, he allows his awe-inspiring presence to drive the fire and air castes to fight like heroes of legends. The Sioka system victory, the pronouncement of Mount Sion, the remarkable El Yash Gauntlet, these and other tales are beloved across the Empire, with each painting the ethereal supreme as the architect of absolute glorious triumph. Nor are On Va's achievements restricted to the battlefield, for he is an orator and negotiator of sublime skill and has brought even the most challenging alien species into the Empire's fold. On Va has lived countless lifespans, even for an ethereal. Yet his people accept this as simply another facet of his legend. He is to them an icon of longevity, stability, and purpose, whose morality could never be countenanced. This is unfortunate, as the true Anva is already dead, slain by an imperial assassin during the apocalyptic conclusion of the war beyond the Damocles Gulf. Knowing the cataclysmic impact his death would have upon Tau society, the Ethereals have since employed solid light technology coupled with AI personality matrices to give the Ethereal Supreme a simulacra of life beyond death that has, thus far, fooled the worshipful masses. Of course, his honor guard may now never leave Anva's side, and none may ever be permitted to touch him, for the labyrinthian deception must never be revealed. Battle suits. The battle suit, or hero's mantle, is emblematic of the Tau way of war. It embodies their philosophy of overcoming any challenge through the innovative application of superior technology. For those finest warriors of the fire caste to who it is granted, it is a badge of honor and a weapon of war both. Most of all, it is a broad category of ever-advancing and diversifying combat armor with near limitless martial applications. The first battle suits invented by the Earth caste were nearly as perilous to the operators as to the foe. Thanks to selfless sacrifices of those first pioneers, however, battle suits soon became pivotal to Tau warfare, with new innovations and marks of suit coming into use all the time. The most enduringly popular battle suit is the XV8 Crisis. Standing twice the height of a fire warrior, it boasts nanocrystalline armor and multiple hardpoints for weaponry and support systems, along with a powerful jetpack. Often deployed in teams via low atmospheric insertion from holds of Manta dropships, these suits offer a balance of speed, resilience, and firepower. The XV8 has further provided the prototype chassis for several more advanced battle suits now available to Tau commanders. These include the XV-86 Cold Star with its trans-atmospheric flight capabilities and the formidable XV-85 Enforcer. For sabotage and intelligence gathering, the Firecast deployed teams of XV-25 stealth battle suits. The pilots of these suits are viewed askance for their unconventional tendencies and preference for operating independently of the wider Tau military. Their peculiarities, however, are more than excused by their combat record. XV-25s mount integral stealth field generators that project a visual distortion effect. Coupled with cloaking fields and sensory deadening technologies, this renders stealth battle suits all but invisible until they strike. More recently, the XV-25 has been joined by the XV-95 Ghost Kill, which is a walking tank and stealth-capable terror weapon in one. The pilots of these battlesuits are veterans of XV-25 operations, augmenting their hard-won abilities in ambush hunting and covert warfare with onboard support AI and a bewildering array of counter-sensory systems. It is a potent combination that has sealed the doom of many foes. Then there are those battlesuits that eschew any notion of subtlety. The XV-88 broadside, for example, is a hulking beast that trades jet-assisted flight for armored resilience and enormous firepower. Toting heavy rail rifles, high-yield missile pods, and smart missile systems, broadside teams unleash salvos capable of shredding squadrons of tanks or swathes of massed infantry. Then there is the XV-104 Riptide, the terror of Damocles, the ultimate heavy battlesuit. A single fire warrior, assisted by an integrated AI, pilots this towering war engine and can move with a jet-assisted mobility that belies the Riptide's intimidating size. The battlesuit's experimental Nova reactor fuses dark matter to provide phenomenal power output that not only facilitates this frightening turn of pace, but also powers the suit's potent energy shield and a veritable arsenal of heavy weaponry. Battlefield support. In addition to the formidable armor and weaponry fashioned for them by the Earthcast, fire warriors on the battlefield have access to numerous supporting technologies, whether they are fighting on foot or piloting a battlesuit. Over their long and glorious history, the Firecast has made use of countless inventions that have flowed from the laboratories of the Earthcast. As each new technological marvel reaches a stage of combat readiness, it is assigned to willing volunteers for frontline testing. Some devices are weeded out during this experimental phase. They may prove too great a drain on a drone or battlesuit's power, or too fragile or temperamental for battlefield conditions. On rare occasions, as in the case of the exothermic reactive mantle, the gravitic auto booster, and the now infamous pulse field projector, they may prove regrettably hazardous to their user. Should this occur, the designs are not discarded, but are instead returned to the laboratory stage for further improvement, albeit with some loss of face for their inventors. For every innovation whose time is not yet ripe, there is another tried and tested system the Firecast would not now be without. Some of these are extremely modular, or have become more so over time. The ubiquitous marker light, for example, is a data beam projector and targeting system used to triangulate their foe's location, so as to undermine their cover positions or guide remote strike weaponry down upon them. So useful is this system that it has been adapted for handheld use by pathfinders and fire warriors. but can also be mounted on drones, battlesuits, and vehicles. By comparison, the electro-warfare suites employed by Ghost Keel battlesuits are so currently complex that they cannot be integrated into any other Tau's battlesuit, let alone replicated in miniature for infantry usage. That does not mean, of course, that this will be the case forever. The Earthcast are always seeking ways to better their own work. Certain support systems are known as staples of the Tau war machine. The operation and manufacture of some of these perennial technologies is so sound that it has not been improved upon in generations. Others are relatively newfound, yet have swiftly proliferated throughout the Firecast's forces and become indispensable to the cause. Oshasera, Commander Shadowsun, spearhead of the greater good. Amongst the finest pupils of Commander Puretide, Oshasera is the foremost living proponent of Kauyan within the Firecast, and amongst the Empire's most iconic war heroes. Clad in her highly advanced XV-22 Stalker battlesuit, Commander Shadowsun employs her strategic genius to orchestrate vast and elaborate battle plans, all while engaging and destroying the enemy's most valuable target assets. More than 400 years before the present day, the humble Shasla, who would become Commander Shadowsun, was the prodigy of the Firecast academies. So exceptional was her performance that she was given the opportunity to study at the feet of the great master, Commander Puretide. There she continued to excel. Despite being Puretide's youngest pupil, she outstripped all her peers bar one, Commander Oshova. Oshasera and Oshova developed a deep and abiding rivalry that pushed both of them to ever greater feats of excellence in the name of the Tau Empire. That rivalry carried over to the bloody campaign upon Dalyth Prime, where the two commanders between them bled the momentum from the Imperial steamroller offensive. It was Oshova's dynamic deeds that gained greatest recognition during that fight. Yet none of his Mont-Ka tactics would have been possible had it not been for Shadowsun's meticulous Kaon strategies. In the wake of that conflict, Commander Farsight was selected by Anva for a daring new mission beyond the Damocles Gulf. Shadowsun, along with a number of Puretide's other living pupils, was sent into suspended animation in preparation for a time when the Empire would need new heroes. No doubt a restless and competitive being like Oshasera chafed at being consigned to the long sleep while her rival continued to win victory after victory for the Empire. Yet she showed her true dedication to the Tau Va that day by accepting without question the decision of the Ethereals. Oshasera knew the time would come when she would best serve the greater good. whether that would take decades, centuries, or millennia. So it did during the Great War of Confederation against the overwhelming orc threat. Having been revivified upon the order of Anva and given command of increasingly sizable Tau forces, Shadow Sun demonstrated her genius at Chaos warfare time and again. Yet it was her audacious strike to end the Kresh expansions that sealed her reputation as the Empire's greatest hero. She led a stealth cadre into the heart of the orc encampment to land the killing blow, timing her attack to coincide with an artificial eclipse, and using low-flying orca dropships to deploy her entire cadre by jump jet direct into the enemy lines. Under cover of the unnatural darkness, Shadow Sun and her warriors picked off the orc leaders one by one. Osha Sarah herself hunted the orc warlord, cutting him down with precision fire before ordering the rest of her cadres to launch their own attack. Shorn of their leaders, the orcs collapsed into panicked anarchy. By the time the sunlight burned through the artificial veil, the battle was over, and a new Firecast legend was born. Promoted to Supreme Commander, Osha Sarah made her address from the Montier Battle Dome, the site where Farsight had famously trained. Arriving resplendent in her new prototype XV-22 battlesuit, she was a sight to stir the martial hearts of all who viewed her. With the entire Firecast watching, Shadow Sun began firing her weapons at the statue of Farsight, obliterating the effigy of this hero turned deserter. As the dust settled, she outlined the new campaigns the Tau Empire would soon embark on. She spoke of honor, the sacred code of fire, and the all-important law of the Tau Va. After this address, every fire warrior shouted in one voice, ready to follow their new commander to any end. Since that day, though she has been returned to stasis more than once, Commander Osha Sarah has remained the champion of the Empire. It was she who led the Third Sphere expansion to so many glorious victories, and who ensured the establishment of septs that have endured beyond the Damocles Gulf ever since. During that conflict, she led the assault that conquered the world Agrellan in a single day. And it was Shadow Sun also who outmaneuvered and struck down Corvin Severax, the chapter master of the Raven Guard Space Marines. It was Shadow Sun, too, who spearheaded the Fifth Sphere expansion's leap into the unknown beyond the zone of silence. In the Chalnath expanse, she secured many fresh victories and masterminded system-wide campaigns of conquest. Some were subtle and diplomatic, others overwhelming martial masterpieces. Following her victory on Astorgius, Commander Shadow Sun turned her strategic genius to once again battling her oldest foes, the orcs. Vast numbers of them had been drawn by the three-sided anarchic campaign raging through the vast swathes of the Chalnath expanse. The greenskins poured from the Fulna nebulae in ragtag invasion fleets, with the Thaxoril, Ryatov, and Barolir systems barely pacified, and conflict still raging on half a dozen other fronts. Oshasera was unwilling to allow this new menace to destabilize the precarious expansion of the Nimyar Atoll, deploying her forces in a complex web of interlocking positions throughout the Vilas, Metash, and Asoda systems. She has begun a military campaign with the Kaon philosophy at its heart, on an inter-system scale. In this way, she plans to bleed dry the Orcs' momentum and utterly crush the threat they pose to the Fifth Sphere expansion. Spheres of expansion. The rise of the Tau can be seen to develop through distinct phases of exploration, conquest, and settlement known as spheres of expansion. Each is marked by a long buildup of resources and material, after which continual waves of exploratory missions and military campaigns follow. In this way are new septs secured, which in turn form the jumping-off points for the next sphere of expansion that follows. The events of the spheres of expansion have occurred over thousands of years. Still, when set against the immense distances involved in void-faring and the comparative pace set by other expanding races, their progress has been explosive. Each has spurred massive leaps in technology and understanding. Each has also come with its own traumas and costs, which Tau civilization has borne with characteristic stoicism. The initial surge out into the void saw the Tau colonize the dense star clusters around their home world. The first 8 Tau septs were established during this era of enterprise and adventure. It was an era when the might and value of the Fire Caste was fully appreciated by the rest of their species, for many worlds played host to hostile alien predators that had to be eliminated before colonization could begin. The Water Caste, too, proved their value during the First Sphere expansion, for it was they, with the aid of the Ethereals, who acclimatized their race to the notion of befriending and then incorporating even the strangest alien races into the Empire. For all their efforts, though, there was one race that could not be absorbed nor reasoned with. It took many costly disasters before the Tau accepted that the Orcs, who proliferate throughout every region of the galaxy, were too savage and hostile ever to benefit the greater good. The First Sphere expansion ended only when the vast distances of space slowed progression to a crawl. It was time for the Earth Caste to develop new methods of spacefaring, and for the rest of the thinly spread empire to regather its strength. In the build-up to the second sphere expansion, the Tau developed their first AI, incorporated countless more alien auxiliaries into their empire, and grew greatly in number. Then the Earth caste of Volshaya Sept invented the ZFR Horizon Accelerator engine, which could propel Tau void ships to near light speed. Only then did Ethereal Supreme An Wei order the second expansion to commence. This new undertaking was to prove even more dynamic than the first, with more than a dozen new septs colonized over its span. The name of Commander Puretide dominated this period of Tau history, as he led masterful campaigns to which the septs of Elsier, Toshvar, and Altau owe their existence. Even the battle-loving orcs feared to face Puretide by the time his career neared its end. Towards the conclusion of this expansion, the Tau pushed forces across the mysterious Damocles Gulf, and there they encountered the Imperium for the first time. Watercast negotiators knew initial success here, and brought a score of human worlds willingly into the Empire before the inevitable Imperium retribution came. Driving the Tau back across the Gulf, the Damocles Crusade carved a bloody path through Tau space before finally being bled of its momentum by commanders Oshova and Oshacera on Daleth Prime. In the wake of this shocking conflict, the high-placed ethereal An Va sent Oshova back across the Gulf to attempt further conquests, only for the commander and his followers to desert in mysterious circumstances. At the same time, the horror of Tyrannid Hive Fleet Gorgon plowed into Kel Shan Sept. The ensuing battles drained the last of the Tau reserves before the invaders were defeated. The second sphere expansion was at an end. The Tau Empire was almost ready to launch its third greatest expansion when an orc Wah of unprecedented enormity spilled from the Western Vale Nebula to attack the Vir-La, Sakea, and Tau-In septs. So began the Great War of Confederacy, during which An Va, now Ethereal Supreme, brought the entire Tau Empire together as a unified war engine to first halt and then defeat the Greenskins. Near the end of the second sphere expansion, several of Commander Puretide's most promising pupils had been placed into suspended animation against the day the Empire would need them most. It was during the Orc invasion that An Va had Commander Oshacera reawakened, for he knew her time had come. By the end of the war, which raged for 12 years, Shadow Sun had made her name as the greatest commander in living memory. She was the hero of the Fire Caste, victor of Vehara, the Dawn Worlds of Kormusan, and the Kresh expansions. Moreover, the empire that revered her had achieved a total war footing during the conflict, and its armies were now filled with blooded veterans buoyed up by victory. Knowing the moment was right, Anva ordered the third sphere of expansion to begin. New Earthcast advances saw the Tau Void ships travel faster than ever, and with stasis chambers on board that could transport entire hunter cadres in suspended animation. The expansion surged across the Damocles Gulf, with Shadow Sun at its head. The Watercast had performed decades of preparatory negotiations amidst the distant alien worlds, and so Shadow Sun's forces claimed dozens of new planets in spectacularly short order. She drove her armies deep into Imperial space, culminating in the crushing conquest of Argrillan, which was declared the capital world of the new Mugalith Bay Sept. Some Tau naively believed that they had the Imperium in full retreat. They did not appreciate the scale of their error until the cataclysmic Imperial counterattack came. Only the unexpected aid of Oshova and his rebels saw the Tau spared from utter defeat in the meat grinder that followed. Yet still it proved horribly costly. Anva was slain by nightmarish Imperial assassins, though his death was kept secret. At the same time, rather than accept stalemate at the hands of upstart Xenos, the Imperium unleashed an Archaeotech superweapon whose fires blackened Argrillan and spread across the Damocles Gulf to drive both sides apart. It was an atrocity on a scale the Tau had never imagined, and it ended the third sphere of expansion in grisly fashion. The Tau Sept is the blazing beacon for the light of the greater good. It is the cradle of the Tau Empire, the greatest seat of culture and wisdom, not to mention a byword for military excellence. Phenomenally well defended, rich in history and infrastructure, it is to all other septs as a sept world is to its satellite planets and moons. It was on the planet of Tau that the eponymous race took their first steps, and here that they first received the wisdom of the ethereals. It is appropriate, then, that even now Tau Sept remains the beating heart of the Empire and the seat of the High Council. In shining domes, surrounded by beautiful parklands and towering statues, the Empire's ruling ethereals gather beneath the stern gaze of Anva, Ethereal Supreme. They are joined by the highest-ranking representatives of each caste, whose duty it is to advise their spiritual leaders and to communicate their edicts to the rest of the Empire. To support this centralized rule, Tau Sept boasts the greatest bureaucratic and cultural centers in the Empire, staffed by some of the most skilled and efficient facilitators the Watercast can provide. Yet, for all its development, the Sept's worlds have retained much of their natural beauty alongside magnificent cities, production centers, and fortifications. Unlike humanity, the Tau pride themselves on possessing the wisdom and restraint not to have overrun their birth world or its neighboring planets. Not for nothing are the folk of this sept considered especially wise and cultured. Tau Sept also boasts the oldest and most venerated fire caste academies found anywhere in the Empire. So prestigious is it to learn the code of fire within this sept's training domes that every Tau who successfully passes through them earns a personal name simply for having done so. This name is chosen by their tutors before they embark upon their first live combat operation, and born into battle with pride ever after. The academies of this sept produce vast numbers of highly trained fire warriors, whose cadres enjoy access to every manner of weapon, armor, drone, and combat vehicle they might require. This is not viewed as a privilege, however, but rather a proudly borne burden of duty. To have access to all that one needs means, to the Tau, that there can be no excuse for failing to excel in service to the greater good. Thus, the fire warriors of this sept train tirelessly and strive ever for perfection, knowing that nothing less is expected or required of them. They place particular emphasis on the oldest and most traditional Tau ways of war. They refine battle plans laid down generations before, always seeking for ways to improve upon them or hone them to ever more nuanced excellence. Their commanders espouse elegant and classical forms of both Montka and Kalyan, and execute their meticulously detailed stratagems with sublime skill and judgment. Every fire warrior, no matter their rank or experience, drills tirelessly to ensure that from a strategic, multi-contingency level right down to individual teams upon the field of battle, all Tau Sept military assets interlock and overlap with a breathtaking and practiced efficiency. A popular proverb throughout the Empire can be roughly translated as follows: the walls of Tau Sept are fashioned not from stone, but instead are wrought of fire. Oshasera. Amongst the finest pupils of Commander Puretide, Oshasera is the foremost living proponent of Kalyan within the fire caste, and amongst the Empire's most iconic war heroes. Clad in her highly advanced XV-22 Stalker battlesuit, Commander Shadowsun employs her strategic genius to orchestrate vast and elaborate battle plans, all while engaging and destroying the enemy's most valuable target assets. More than 400 years before the present day, the humble Shasla, who would become Commander Shadowsun, was the prodigy of the fire caste academies. So exceptional was her performance that she was given the opportunity to study at the feet of the great master Commander Puretide. There she continued to excel Despite being Puretide's youngest pupil, she outstripped all of her peers, bar one, Commander Oshova. Oshacera and Oshova developed a deep and abiding rivalry that pushed both of them to ever greater feats of excellence in the name of the Tau Empire. That rivalry carried over to the bloody campaign upon Dalyath Prime, where the two commanders between them bled the momentum from the Imperial steamroller offensive. It was Oshova's dynamic deeds that gained greatest recognition during that fight. Yet none of his Mont Ka tactics would have been possible had it not been for Shadow Sun's meticulous Kalyan strategies. In the wake of that conflict, Commander Farsight was selected by Anva for a daring new mission beyond the Damocles Gulf. Shadow Sun, along with a number of Puretide's other living pupils, was sent into suspended animation in preparation for a time when the Empire would require new heroes. No doubt a restless and competitive being like Oshacera chafed at being consigned to the long sleep, while her rival continued to win victory after victory for the Empire. Yet she showed her true dedication to the Tau Va that day by accepting without question the decision of the Ethereals. Oshacera knew the time would come when she would best serve the greater good. Whether that would take decades, centuries, or millennia. So it did during the Great War of Confederation against the overwhelming Orc threat. Having been revivified upon the orders of Anva and given command of increasingly sizable Tau forces, Shadow Sun demonstrated her genius at Kalyan warfare time and again. Yet it was her audacious strike to end the Kresh expansions that sealed her reputation as the Empire's greatest hero. She led a stealth cadre into the heart of the Orc encampment to land the killing blow, timing her attack to coincide with an artificial eclipse and using low-flying Orca dropships to deploy her entire cadre by jump jet direct into enemy lines. Under cover of the unnatural darkness, Shadow Sun and her warriors picked off the Orc leaders one by one. Oshacera herself hunted the Orc warlord, cutting him down with precision fire before ordering the rest of her cadres to launch their own attack. Shorn of their leaders, the Orcs collapsed into panicked anarchy. By the time the sunlight burned through the artificial veil, the battle was over, and a new Firecast legend was born. Promoted to Supreme Commander, Oshacera made her address from the Montir Battle Dome, the site where Farsight had famously trained. Arriving resplendent in her new prototype XV-22 battlesuit, she was a sight to stir the martial hearts of all who viewed her. With the entire Firecast watching, Shadow Sun began by firing her weapons at the statue of Farsight, obliterating the effigy of this hero-turned-deserter. As the dust settled, she outlined the new campaigns the Tau Empire would soon embark on. She spoke of honor, the sacred code of fire, and the all-important law of the Tao of Awe. After this address, every fire warrior shouted in one voice, ready to follow their new commander to any end. Since that day, though she has been returned to stasis more than once, Commander Osha Sarah has remained the champion of the Empire. It was she who led the Third Sphere expansion to so many glorious victories, and who ensured the establishment of septs that have endured beyond the Damocles Gulf ever since. During that conflict, she led the assault that conquered the world of Argrillan in a single day. And it was Shadow Sun who outmaneuvered and struck down Corvin Severax, the chapter master of the Raven Guard Space Marines. It was Shadow Sun, too, who spearheaded the Fifth Sphere expansion's leap into the unknown, beyond the zone of silence. In the Chalnoth expanse, she secured many fresh victories and masterminded system-wide campaigns of conquest. Some were subtle and diplomatic, others overwhelming martial masterpieces. Following her victory on Astorgius, Commander Shadow Sun turned her strategic genius to once again battling her oldest foes, the orcs. Vast numbers of them had been drawn by the three-sided and anarchic campaign raging through vast swaths of the Chalnoth expanse. The greenskins poured from the Fulna Nebulae in ragtag invasion fleets, with Thaxoril Ryatov and Borrelier systems barely pacified, and conflict still raging on a half a dozen fronts. Osha Sarah was unwilling to allow this new menace to destabilize the precarious expansions of the Namyar Atoll. Deploying her forces in a complex web of interlocking positions throughout the Vilos Metsha and Osada systems, she has begun a military campaign with the Kalyan philosophy at its heart on an inter-system scale. In this way, she plans to bleed dry the orcs' momentum and utterly crush the threat they pose to the Fifth Sphere expansion. Vaiorla. The name Vaiorla can be translated as meaning hot-blooded. This is certainly a fitting description for the Tau who hail from this sept. Its fire-cast enclaves are hugely populous, ensuring a swift and constant flow of naturally talented recruits to bolster Vaiorla's armies, while the sept's air caste has produced some of the finest atmospheric combat pilots in the Empire's history. The worlds of Vaiorla Sept orbit fiery young binary stars. Several planets lie within the system's habitable zone, while the Tau have sighted domes on almost every other planet and moon in the system. Such prolific colonization belies the lethality of the system's biospheres. There is not a settlement in Vaiorla Sept that does not have to contend with rapacious predatory flora and fauna. Such natural hazards could be quelled, but the Ethereals have dictated matters be left as they are. The fierce Viourlan temperament is an asset to the Empire, and the Sept's people would not be what they are without a daily fight to endure. Viourlans are proud of what they sometimes call their edge. Throughout the Empire, the name Viourla is synonymous with courage, confidence, conviction, and determination. The Sept's Earth-caste scientists have been responsible for great advances in short-ranged, high-impact weapons, such as the pulse carbine and pulse blaster. It was Viourlan research teams, also, who created the prototype Onager gauntlets, issued to a handful of Tau leaders during the war beyond the Damocles Gulf. The Sept's water caste are similarly forthright. Their traders have a reputation for hard bargaining and profitable risk-taking. As for their diplomats, Shasso Viourla Tashal once said of them that he would rather stare down the barrel of a loaded pulse rifle than find himself on the receiving end of their forceful negotiating stance. The Sept's greatest strength lies in its military forces. Viourla produces such a quantity of high-quality soldiery, war engines, and material that only the Tau Sept itself can rival it. Commanders from this Sept are masters at harnessing aggression and are renowned proponents of the Mont Ka. Viourlan strategy espouses reconnaissance and force, followed by pinpoint strikes upon crucial targets by battlesuits and airborne assets. Viourlan commanders take risks their counterparts from other Septs would not consider, but the results are typically spectacular. Many enemies collapse, their leadership and communication infrastructure crippled, and their most powerful assets annihilated before they have even entered battle. Against those who stubbornly refuse to give in, the Viourlan commanders next unleash the full might of their cadres in fast-paced campaigns of conquest that soon bludgeon the foe into defeat and compliance. This is not to say that the Viourlans do not use Kauyon tactics. Rather, they imbue such maneuvers with their own trademark aggression. Their lures are most often crippled enemy assets crying for aid, while Viourlan commanders eschew multi-layered complexity in favor of decisive and overwhelming ambush. The fire caste academies of Viourla Sept are amongst the oldest, largest, and most renowned in all of Tau space. Names such as the Vache, Foras, and Kovaret training domes have produced countless heroes. These storied figures are immortalized in dynamic statuary around the Firecast academies on Viourla Prime. It is the greatest ambition of every new Shasla who graduates from there that their likeness will one day join those timeless heroic figures. On Shi. Hailing from the proud martial sept of Viourla, On Shi is the epitome of a warrior ethereal. Privately, he longs for peace. Yet, understanding the necessity of war, he joins the fire caste in their rituals, their training, and their hardships. On Shi believes absolutely in the Tao Va and in the manifest destiny of the Tao Empire, and he will not take his rest until he sees the promise of both fulfilled. Most ethereals are dignified and enigmatic beings, standing ever aloof even from the soldiers of the fire caste, amidst whose ranks they go to war. Not so on Shi. He is a grizzled combatant, a master of many fighting styles that he has honed over long years until his honor blade has drunk the blood of hundreds. He does not glory in such killing. To On Shi, war is but a sad necessity upon the road to eventual galactic peace. This outlook has never softened him towards his enemies, and he is lionized by the fire caste, who see in him a savior and a hero who honors them by fighting in their midst. At the time of the battle that made On Shi a legend, he was already nearing the age when an ethereal can choose to retire to a life of contemplation. His last assignment was to the frontier world of Kaltir. Infested with orcs, this world's colonization had been slow. Now, On Shi brought the wisdom of his many campaigns against the greenskins to bear, while the fire caste reinforcements that came with him set about cleansing the alien threat for good. All proceeded well until on his last inspection tour, On Shi became trapped in the domed city of Phiovash by an orc horde. When the Greenskins war boss beheaded the Shashvar leading the Tau troops, the fire warriors came close to panic. In that moment, On Shi cut down the orc war leader in turn and rallied the wavering Tau. He went on to repulse one fresh wave of attackers after another, fighting tirelessly and employing stirring oratory to keep his followers hanging on until at last reinforcements arrived. In recognition of his incredible victory, On Shi became known as the Aged Wonder, and far from retiring, has fought on ever since in the name of the greater good. Saw Sia. Saw Sia was not an easy sept to establish. Its worlds are hot, lashed by ferocious natural phenomena, and the fiery anger of their star. The Tau not only overcame these challenges, but they also established such numerous and prosperous dome cities that Saw Sia Sept is now the most populous of all Tau-controlled systems. The worlds of Saw Sia Sept boast interconnected dome cities and agriplexes that cover almost the entire surface. Beneath their foundations, subterranean cavern networks contain sprawling complexes of Earth-cast laboratories and high-tech factories that labor in a continuous artificial day. Saw Sia Prime is a sweltering cityscape of glittering crystal and alloy, whose once inhospitable deserts now play host to teeming trillions. Human worlds supporting such vast populations have been shown time and time again to languish in inequality and near anarchy. The Tau look upon the nightmarish hive cities of the Imperium with mingled pity and revulsion. Thanks to the strictures of the greater good, the cities of Saw-Sia are nothing like this. It is true that the average citizen lives a comparatively Spartan life when set against Tau of other septs. Yet every Saw-Sian does their part to ensure that life in their cities remains manageable, their worlds productive, and their people healthy. This requires no little individual discipline and selflessness. Not for nothing are the Tau of this sept renowned for their calm temperament and unimpeachable conduct. The ingrained discipline of the Saw-Sian Tau lends itself to military service. Their fire caste are respected for the efficiency and lethality of their firing lines, standing firm against onrushing enemy forces, coolly selecting their targets before unleashing crashing volleys, stop even the most nightmarish foes in their tracks. The steady temperament of the Sept's commanders makes them natural proponents of Kauyon tactics, meticulously laying intricate overlapping plans of feint and strike that see their enemies drawn in and picked apart with merciless precision. Another natural advantage possessed by the fire caste of Saw-Sia Sept is their familiarity with tight urban confines. Their sense of direction within urban settings seems almost supernatural to other Tau, and they possess an instinctive spatial awareness that allows them to detect incoming threats and pick out optimal routes amidst war-torn cityscapes. To maximize these advantages, the Saw-Sian training domes incorporate subterranean facilities within which are simulated the urban sprawls of enemy races. Imperial hives are replicated in miles-wide swaths, their finer details consulted upon by those Guavessa who can bear to look back upon the Gothic nightmare they have left behind. Orc shanty camps and scrap forts, twisted tyrannid bioscapes, and even replica Necron tombs are amongst the hostile alien cityscapes simulated for the use of the Saw-Sian fire caste. None are perfect replicas, of course. They are, after all, fashioned with Tau techniques and materials. Yet they serve their purpose. Saw-Sian cadres are often charged with the hellish duties of urban pacification or close-quarters tunnel fighting. They accept these missions and the casualty rates with staunch pride and approach each grueling conflict with the honorable calm for which they are so rightly famed. Bor Khan. Bor Khan is a sept blessed in both material riches and scientific academia. The former flows to the Sept world from the bountiful mineral mines of its sister planets. There, it is put into service by the latter, with Earth-caste scientists employing their system's riches to fashion remarkable new technologies that benefit the entire Tau Empire. Ever since it was established during the First Sphere expansion, Borkon Sept has been a center for erudition and progressive thought. Borkon Prime is famed for its libraries, its artistic centers, and magnificent architecture, all results of its unusually high Earth-caste population. There is a harder side to Borkon, of course. With such a concentration of brilliant Earth-caste minds, the Sept also possesses the most dynamic and well-resourced military scientific complex within Tau space. Its applied sciences divisions have been responsible for countless advances in a range of fields. It was scientists on Borkon Prime who pioneered the stasis chambers that now carry entire cadres in temporal suspension on their long voyages through the void. A team under Fio Borkon Vesno was responsible for the pilot battlesuit first used by Sashla Tau Shang during armored battles on Mugaloth Bay. Rumor has it that the entire scientific cadres were transported in secret to Indra's Sept as early as the end of the Second Sphere expansion to develop the breathtakingly deadly Ghost Keel battlesuit. The Firecast of Borkon Sept benefit hugely from the skill of their scientific compatriots. Every arm of their military boasts bleeding-edge technological advantages, from finely crafted armor and weapons to perfectly attuned shield modulators. In return for such boons, the Firecast willingly field test the prototype technologies of the applied sciences divisions on the battlefield. Such tests are not without their risks. Inevitably, for every wonder weapon that outperforms all expectations, there is another system that fails the stress test of live combat with tragic results. Those fire warriors lost to such mishaps are honored as the Vash Tuo, or selfless tutors. Their names are recorded for posterity upon a glowing light sculpture that scrolls endlessly through the largest of Borkon's libraries. Daliath. Daliath Sept bore the brunt of the Imperium's Damocles Crusade. Its Sept world was the stage upon which that conflict's last punishing battles played out, and was terribly ravaged by their violence. For all this, Daliath is perhaps the best example of the Tau Va in action, for it has risen from the ashes thanks to cooperation and indomitable determination. Daliath has always been cosmopolitan and bustling, welcoming Tau and alien off-worlders with great enthusiasm. First and foremost, in the name of swift-flowing free trade. The water caste of Daliath are renowned for their ability to conduct vastly complex trade negotiations. The goal of these is not for one party to profit at another's expense, but rather to ensure the most mutually beneficial exchanges of information, goods, and personnel for all sides. So, they claim, is the Tau Va best served, and Daliath enriched not only with commerce, but also vital contacts and allies amongst countless non-Tau races. The benefits of this creed were never more evident than in the wake of the Sept's devastating conflict with human invaders. Hundreds of alien trade partners and allied races responded to Daliath's call for aid. While some of these beings sought to swindle the Tau from beneath the cloak of seeming magnanimity, others came out of genuine good feeling and charity. Through the tireless machinations of Daliath's water caste, altruists and swindlers alike ended up giving more than they had intended, while somehow still leaving satisfied. So did reconstruction materials and willing labor crews flood Daliath's Sept. Hundreds of thousands of Brachura, Thraxians, Boaburi, hulking Mulja, and even mortified Guevesa toiled alongside the Tau, many becoming naturalized citizens of the worlds they had helped rebuild. Within a generation, Daliath's cities had arisen more formidable and bustling than ever before. The legacy of this joint reconstruction is a Sept whose population is remarkably diverse, variously described as the Tau Va writ large, and a hopeful vision of the galactic future. This extends to its military forces also, with Dalithian contingents counting as many alien auxiliaries amongst their ranks as Tau. Farsight enclaves, the renegade Sept. At the end of the Second Sphere expansion, Oshova led a force across the Damocles Gulf. His mission to reclaim those Tau colony worlds lost to Imperial aggression. Initially, Commander Farsight's dynamic leadership saw world after world taken back from the humans, who had been forced to turn their attention to other threats. Then came Arthas Moloch and disaster. With but a single world to recolonize, Oshova was drawn off mission by his oldest and most hated enemies, the Orcs. What started as swift raids to repel greenskin warbands soon turned into a prolonged war against a horde of orc clans traveling aboard crude asteroid bases. In time, Oshova's forces cut deep into the orc invasion, chasing the ruling war boss to a nearby artifact world. This was a forlorn place, long abandoned by the Imperium. Its name was Arthas Moloch, and there, Farsight's forces were engaged by a savage yet unidentified enemy, while the orcs escaped in the confusion. Little was reported from the battle, save that all the ethereals who had accompanied Oshova's coalition were slain. The mysterious attackers had subsequently disappeared, leaving Arthas Moloch desolate once more. Undaunted by his losses, and despite orders to return, Commander Farsight refused to rejoin the other forces of the Tau Empire. Instead, he led the remnants of his army back onto the orcs' trail. Their pursuit soon took them beyond communication range, eventually passing through the strange region known as the Forbidden Zone, and vanishing altogether. The Tau Empire sent many desperate messages via their chain of communication beacons. Accelerator arrays hurled their pleas and eventually their ultimatums deep into unknown space along the last known trail of Oshova and his expeditionary force. No response came back. After many years without reply, the expedition was deemed lost. The Tau Empire mourned the fall of one of their most illustrious commanders. It was not until years later that probes penetrated deep into the region where Oshova's forces had last been seen. The deep void AIs beamed back ominous reports. It appeared that Farsight yet lived and had established his own colonies on the far side of the Damocles Gulf. This mysterious, unprecedented, and unthinkable betrayal of the greater good haunts the Tau Empire to this day. The fact remains that the so-called Farsight enclaves continue to thrive. They are, in effect, their own extended sept that has declared independence from the Tau Empire. Their caste factions still aid one another according to the tenets of the Tau Va. They have not slipped back into the barbarism of the Mon Tau. Yet they live without ethereal oversight and refuse any intrusion by the fifth caste. Oshova himself still rules. Another unsettling mystery, considering that his lifespan should have drawn to an end long ago. For all this, the most disturbing aspect of the Farsight enclaves, from the point of view of the Ethereal Council, is the appearance amongst the forces of battlesuit and weapons technologies developed by the Empire after their departure. Perhaps this is due to spycraft or theft. Yet the fear remains. What if factions within loyal septs are aiding the enclaves? Oshova. Oshova is the most divisive figure in Tau history. He is the greatest warrior ever born of Viorla Sept. He is a protege of Commander Puretide. He won great victories on Daliath and beyond the Damocles Gulf. Yet he is a traitor who has renounced the rule of the Ethereal High Council. and by extension, the Tau Va itself. Oshova is the undisputed master of the Mont Ka, a fact unsurprising to any who know the commander or have ever been led to war by him. His comrades have described him as decisive, aggressive, strong-willed, and single-minded. His detractors, En Va greatest amongst them, call him a willful renegade whose obstinacy led his loyal followers to be damned alongside him. Whether Oshova is a hero, traitor, or a little of both, his strategic and tactical brilliance cannot be disputed. It was under the tutelage of Pure Tide himself that Oshova learned the importance of reading the terrain, gauging the foe, and then launching bold, decisive strikes to cripple them in short order. Preferring to eschew long-range firepower, Oshova encouraged the aggressive spirit of the fire caste in his warriors, and they won many bitter battles at close range. Such tactics proved especially effective against the never-ending scourge of the orcs. It was for his tactical brilliance while battling the hated aliens that the young commander won his epithet Farsight. In recognition of his skill in seeing the foe's plans and countering them before the battle had even begun. The Ethereals would say that Oshova abandoned the Tau Empire, yet the commander himself would counter that they abandoned him first. As his forces pushed further beyond the Damocles Gulf, so support from the Empire's heartlands dwindled. His was the last action of the Second Sphere expansion, an undertaking that had exhausted the Empire with its prosecution. When Commander Farsight diverted from his mission to do battle with a seemingly endless tide of orcs, the Ethereal Council did indeed become disinclined to feed more of their dwindling reserves into what they saw as Oshova's self-absorbed crusade. By the time of the events upon Arthas Moloch, there was already a rift between Commander Farsight and his former patron, En Va. The loss of ethereal control during that strange and bloody conflict rendered the breach irreparable. Oshova chose his course partly through obstinate pride, but also for the sake of the Tau and alien auxiliaries he led, and who he believed had been inexcusably betrayed. His wisdom as a leader saw them establish a string of well-defended and provisioned colony worlds far beyond the bounds of the Empire, and despite ongoing conflicts against the orcs and other perilous foes, these Farsight enclaves endure still. So does Oshova himself, a fact that mystifies the now venerable commander as much as it does his foes. The Ethereal High Council believes that he has secured his longevity through some technological process, or that a series of successors have taken up the mantle of Farsight. The truth is far stranger. During the fighting on Arthas Moloch, the commander acquired an ancient artifact, a sword older than the Imperium of Man, fashioned eons ago by the strange race that once inhabited the haunted world. The weapon that would come to be known as the Dawn Blade was forged from materials that the finest earth-cast minds continue to find mystifying. Its edge is sharp enough to cut through solid rock, and since taking it up on Arthas Moloch and modifying it for his battlesuit to wield in battle, it has remained Oshova's weapon of choice. Unbeknownst to the commander, the sword's blade is made from chronophagic alloys. Whenever it cuts a life short, the natural span stolen from the victim is added to the wielder's own. This has allowed Oshova to live for several centuries, though he has his suspicions that it is the Dawn Blade that has prolonged his lifespan. If Commander Farsight ever found out the horrible truth, he would likely end his own life in ritual suicide there and then. It is fortunate for Oshova's followers that this has never come to pass. They need his leadership more than ever in these dark days. Wielding the Dawn Blade, clad in his iconic crimson battlesuit, Commander Farsight leads his loyal warriors into battle after battle. A chosen band of disciples, known as the Eight, often fight at his side, all heroes in their own right, and piloting an array of customized battlesuits that render them a deadly and varied force. Oshova needs every ounce of their skill and versatility, for he fights for the very survival of his courageous enclaves. The Fire Caste form the military mainstay of the Tau Empire. They are professional soldiers, trained and equipped to the highest possible standard before being deployed to wherever their people need them most. The might of the Fire Caste maintains the ongoing momentum of Tau colonial expansion and forms the final argument against those who would impede the advance of the greater good. The warriors of the Fire Caste are trained from their youngest days and indoctrinated into the traditions and philosophies of the Code of Fire. They are raised to value honor and reason. They appreciate the application of balanced and well thought out strategy and the maintenance of self-control. Never will the Fire Caste fall back into the madness and barbarity of the Mon Tau. To this end, the central pillars of Tau military doctrine are superior mobility and the application of overwhelming firepower. Not for the Fire Caste the costly last stands, Pyrrhic victories, and ghastly meat grinders favored by such races as humanity or the orcs. For one thing, though it spans many star systems, the Tau Empire is still minuscule when examined upon a galactic scale. Its population is only so large, can only replace its casualties of war so fast, and struggles to keep up with the demands of an ever-expanding colonial border. Were the Fire Caste to throw away lives without good reason, the equation would become impossible to balance. Yet more than this, the Tau scorn such wasteful tactics as the last refuge of the terminally inept or barbaric. No fire warrior would hesitate to lay down their life if they believed it would further the cause of the greater good. yet they would not willingly engage in senseless martyrdom. Indeed, should a Firecast commander lead their forces to victory at steep cost in lives, they are more likely to be shamed for the price of their conquest than for its achievement. The armies of the Firecast concentrate on subduing their enemies while preserving their own soldiers' lives. Their way of war relies upon momentum and continuous movement. It puts little stock in the capture of swaths of territory for the sake of planting flags. Indeed, their enemies' compulsion to hold symbolic but strategically meaningless locations, such as sacred temples or static fortifications, often plays into the hands of the Firecast, who can factor such illogical actions into their own plans. They will, of course, fight to secure sites such as communication hubs, supply depots, orbital defense silos, and the like. Yet, even then, this is done primarily to deny such assets to the foe. Ultimately, the Firecast seek to wear away their enemy's capability and willingness to fight on, and thus secure their capitulation with the minimum needless slaughter. Thus, they will often destroy captured strategic sites rather than claim them for their own. Not only does this prevent costly and escalating static engagements, but also the Tau eschew co-opting enemy installations when they can instead rely upon their own, clearly superior military equipment. Thanks to the tireless efforts of the Earthcast, Tau technology is superior to that of almost any other race they have encountered. The Firecast acknowledge that even their most physically formidable warriors give something away in both reaction speed and brawn when set against many of the dangerous alien races they fight. Rather than try to compete upon what they view as the most barbaric level of warfare, the Tau instead look to technology, training, and devotion to the greater good to stack the odds in their favor. Even the lowest ranking and untested fire warrior takes to the field clad in resilient battle armor, one shoulder guard of which doubles as a formidable anti-ballistic shield. Their pulse firearms employ induction fields to propel particles that break down and create focused plasma blasts that can either be projected over extremely long ranges or in rapid storms of shorter-ranged fire. Such weaponry ensures fire warriors are well equipped to win firefights against most other line infantry in the galaxy. Their helmets boast hardened communications and sensory display systems, and in battle, their teams can call upon the support of an array of specialized AI-controlled drones. These loyal and resilient machines fulfill a wide array of roles, from flying force field projectors or energy transmitters that augment Tau weapons to mobile fire support platforms or grav wave generators. To make best use of their available arsenal, the Firecast place heavy emphasis on skilled marksmanship under pressure. and the use of firearms over brute force, even at close quarters. The result is a battle line of infantry that subjects the enemy to unrelenting storms of high-powered anti-personnel fire, whether pressing forward on the attack or holding steady in defense. For all their technology, the Firecast focus just as much attention on the personal and spiritual strength of the soldiers that wield it. Many teams train together from a young age, competing with and supporting one another until they are closer than any family. The ultimate expression of this bond is a ritual known as the Ta Luricera, which roughly translates to a type of communion or binding oath. Those who have sworn such an oath as part of a bonding knife ritual may address each other by their individual names and have vowed to support one another unto death. It is not uncommon for teams to progress together as well. Veteran fire warrior teams may even earn promotion to the rank of Shao Sui together. Each might serve for a time as a squad leader for a different strike team or breacher team before the survivors are reunited as an XV8 Crisis battlesuit team. If fire warriors were all that the Firecast could bring to bear, then they would already be a powerful, albeit limited, military force. However, these are but the line infantry who provide the backbone for the armies of the Tau Empire. Most are born into battle aboard well-armored gravitic hover transports that keep the fire warriors mobile and well protected and supported amidst the perils of the battlefield. Others man fortifications that are themselves grav capable. Aboard these, the fire warriors can ride, facilitating mobile fortresses that can redeploy at need and carry their own garrisons with them as they go. Some Firecast warriors deploy as elite pathfinders who scout the foe and mark targets for long-ranged elimination, or spot for teams of deadly MV-71 sniper drones. Then there are the supporting formations, heavy gunships such as the TX-7 Hammerhead or TX-78 Skyray, mobile artillery assets like the mighty Storm Surge, a wealth of aircast air support ranging from smaller fighter craft to huge tank hunters like the AX-52 Barracuda and the vast Manta dropship. A plethora of iconic and deadly battlesuits that so epitomize the technological supremacy of the Tau way of war. Only the most veteran and proven fire warriors are permitted to pilot these wonder weapons, and wherever they strike, they dominate the combat sphere. Taken in their entirety, the armies of the Firecast are versatile and deadly, even before factoring in the orbital support provided by their aircast allies in the void above. This is a war machine honed to perfection, yet always willing to adapt and develop further so that it might better serve the greater good. Fundamental to the operation of this cutting-edge military machine are the philosophies of war that all fire warriors must strive to master. By far, the two most common forms of military tactics used by the Tau are the Mont Ka and the Cao Yon. Each method is taught in depth by the great Firecast academies, and each has its own adherents amongst the masters. Both styles are based on hunting techniques that date back to the early years of the Tau's evolutionary and social development, each representing one of the two broad approaches to ensnaring and slaying the quarry. The Cao Yon, which roughly translates as the patient hunter, is the oldest of the Tau ways of war. This style of combat relies upon employing one or more lures to draw the enemy in, before closing the jaws of the trap upon the foe once they have committed. The lure itself may be Tau teams, striking then feigning retreat. It may be enemy forces intentionally cut off and tricked into calling for help, or battlefield assets the enemy considers too precious to abandon to the Tau. True masters of Cao Yon employ layers of contingencies and multiple mobile lures to pull apart their enemy's cohesion before striking with sudden and decisive fury. The Mont Ka is the other leading Tau military philosophy, and it is both aggressive and risky to execute. Translating as the killing blow, this strategy centers around highly mobile attack forces, identifying key targets and assailing them with overwhelming force before withdrawing to safety. Timing and intelligence are key to Mont Ka. Launching the attack against inadvisable odds or at an inauspicious time will likely spell disaster. Thus, do the Firecast plan every detail of their strike before it is launched, further building in contingencies to prevent needless casualties should fate or a cunning foe intervene. The Mont Ka may well come in rapid, overlapping assaults from different directions, the Tau employing their mobility and firepower to keep the enemy off balance. In the end, the decision to launch a Mont Ka or to call it off lies not with its commander, but rather with troops on the ground who have the best visibility. So it is that many Mont Ka attacks are called down by trusted teams of pathfinders behind enemy lines, while the successful execution of such an attack brings great honor to pathfinders and commander both. Of all the Tau commanders ever to lead or to teach, the famed commander Puretide was perhaps the greatest master of the Mont Ka, the Cao Yon, and of other more unusual philosophies of war. Grievously wounded towards the end of his life, Puretide became a hermit, spending his last years committing his accumulated wisdom and experience to posterity. He wished to pass on his uniquely balanced style of war so that after his death, others could build upon his successes. All Firecast academies, from the world of Tau itself to the far reaches of the Empire teach Pure Tide's work. The most promising students, perhaps only one in every generation, can still apprentice directly under the tutelage of Pure Tide himself. These elite disciples spend time with the Old Master thanks to the Earthcast's holographic programming technology, which provides an interactive AI that thinks, responds, and contemplates. The ethereals tightly control access, but those few who meet the requirements join Pure Tide at his retreat atop Mount Kanji on Daliath Prime. Despite his efforts, few, if any, of Pure Tide's students have grasped the full scope of his balanced enlightenment. Yet names such as Oshova, Oshasera, and the much-feared Okias are associated with the Old Master's tutelage, and while none mastered true balance, each emerged as a savant of their chosen martial philosophy. The Tau Empire's military campaigns vary in scope and requirement, from localized policing of alien piracy or remote special operations beyond the borders of Tau space, to full-blown expansion fleets whose duties are equal parts rapid colonization and martial conquest. Thus, the strategic composition and doctrine of the Tau military is kept fluid in order to allow the different castes to work in optimal conjunction. The smallest unit of Tau military organization is the team. Within the context of the Fire Caste, this is a formation comprising between 5 and 12 soldiers, including a team leader, who may or may not yet have earned the rank of Shashui. Multiple teams are combined beneath a single commander into a cadre. By far the most common of these formations is the Hunter Cadre, a tactically integrated battlefield force built around a core of fire warriors, but further incorporating battlesuits, armored transports, and gunships, alien auxiliary units, and mobile artillery. The precise composition of each Hunter Cadre varies depending upon available assets, the strategic situation, and the preferences of its commander. Regardless of their specific makeup, however, Hunter Cadres remain the dependable and adaptable mobile mainstay of most Tau deployments. There are numerous more specialized types of cadre standardized within the Code of Fire. The Rapid Insertion Cadre, which comprises only battlesuits, the Infiltration Cadre, made up of Pathfinders and Stealth battlesuits, the Auxiliary Reserve Cadre, which fields only alien auxiliaries, the Armored Interdiction Cadre, which masses Tau gunships in a devastating direct strike formation. The list continues and is always growing, but the Fire Caste encourage innovation in the optimal deployment of both new and existing military assets. Contingents are temporary assemblages of multiple cadres and are formed for the completion of specific campaign objectives. A contingent will be commanded by its most senior commander, except upon those occasions when an ethereal chooses to take direct command themselves. Upon the completion of its stated aims, the contingent is dissolved, and its elements redeployed to new contingents as the situation requires. In recent times, multiple contingents have been gathered into still larger formations known as communes. It is a symptom of the ever-growing scale of the wars the Tau must fight that such a sizable formation be required at all. Yet there is no denying communes have proven highly effective, especially when they combined contingents from different septs in an alloy of specialisms and mutual cooperation. Lastly, all the Tau forces committed to a single location or war zone are referred to as a coalition. Each coalition is ruled over by an ethereal council. It is further made up of commands, which are the forces committed by each caste to that location of the war zone. For example, all the fire caste fighting on the world of Olmeth would be referred to collectively as the Fire Caste Command Olmeth. The Kroot. The Kroot are by far the most common alien auxiliaries serving in the Fire Caste's armies. With billions of their kind armed for war and assigned to hunter cadres of nearly every sept. Although their primitive aggression is viewed with distaste by the Tau, such inherent savagery makes them particularly effective shock troops. The Tau and the Kroot have long enjoyed a mutually beneficial alliance. The origins of their compact lie in the closing days of the First Sphere expansion, when an exploration fleet out of Daliath Sept came across a fierce battle between alien species. On one side were the orcs, already despised by the Tau for their brutish nature. On the other fought a species the Tau had not encountered before, but whose noble and tenacious spirit they swiftly found themselves admiring. What had begun as a scientific observation escalated into full-blown conflict as the Tau were moved to deploy their fleet and come to the rescue of the hopelessly outnumbered Kroot. So was the world of Kroth relieved, and many Kroot spared. Yet the Tau did not have long to enjoy their victory. Where one greenskin horde is found, inevitably more are close by, and this was no exception. The Tau relief force were soon compelled to ally themselves with the Kroot, as fresh orc forces arrived from the void to join the fight. To the mutual surprise of both Tau and Kroot, their two races fought well alongside one another, each covering for gaps in the tactical capabilities of the other. In this way, they formed a martial alloy tough enough to hold out against the Greenskins until reinforcements from the Saasea Sept could arrive to turn the tables once more. This first joint campaign has become known as the War in the Place of Union, a great and historical moment for both races. Compelled by the Tau Va and intrigued by their ferocious new allies, the Tau forces agreed to stay and aid the Kroot in liberating their remaining enclaves from the orcs. So began a campaign that ended upon the Kroot homeworld of Peck. There, at the sacred Oath Stone, the legendary Kroot leader, Angkor Prak, swore allegiance to the Tau Empire and pledged his warriors to fight for the greater good and regular payment. The Kroot are first and foremost a mercenary species. Their ethics are, in some ways, enormously divergent from those of the Tau. Yet somehow the two races have found more common ground than they have differences. Kroot live in kindreds, gathering somewhere between mercenary companies, extended tribal families, and nomadic warbands. Each is led by one or more Kroot shapers. None outside of the Kroot themselves know how a shaper is appointed, nor the precise source of their unusual wisdom. The Kroot of their kindred follow them with fierce loyalty. Within their society, the shaper's word is law. One of the most important duties of the shapers is to act as negotiators. They seek out mercenary employment for their kindred and set the terms of each contract. Many of these arrangements are formed with the Tau, but by no means all of them. Kroot have little compunction as to their employers, nor the nature of their often dirty and brutal jobs they are hired to perform. Their strange, void-faring war spheres ply the space lanes far and wide, and Kroot mercenaries have been seen fighting for human inquisitors and rogue traders, alongside Eldari of various sorts, in allegiance with gnarl-skinned demiurge, and on behalf of even stranger and more shadowy employers. There are exceptions to this open policy, of course. Few Kroot would stoop so low as to fight alongside servants of the ruinous powers, while none would ever sully themselves by fighting for the orcs. Compared to the Tau, Kroot are warlike and bloodthirsty savages. Yet they are neither stupid nor bestial. The Kroot are uncommonly skilled trackers and wilderness fighters, experts in fieldcraft who swiftly master the perils and boons of each new ecosystem they encounter. Their preference is for ambush hunting, whittling their enemies down with repeated volleys from their bulky rifles before unleashing their charge. That onslaught, when it comes, is terrifying to behold. Wiry and agile, limbs cabled with taut muscles, the Kroot surge into the fight while voicing shrill avian cries. They fall upon their foes with a ferocity that explains why Kroot warriors are collectively known as carnivores. Blades at each end of their rifles allows them to hack and slash at their foes, the most skillful spinning these weapons like blurring quarterstaffs. Yet the Kroot possess natural weapons also, in the form of talons and beak-like maws lined with sharp fangs. They have no qualms about using these to rip their enemies to bloody tatters. This unrestrained bloodshed is sickening to the Tau, yet what comes after distresses them even more. Earthcast scientists theorize that the Kroot possess a unique morphagic biology, that allows them to consciously absorb the desirable traits of those whose flesh they devour. Thus, even as the last shots of battle are being fired, the Kroot set about feasting on the flesh of the fallen. They are forbidden from eating Tau corpses, but this is the only concession their allies have been able to exact from the Kroot on this front. The aliens have no taboo regarding cannibalism and regularly eat of their own fallen comrades, so that strength may pass from the dead into those who still require it to live. Here, the Shapers perform their other main duty, directing their warriors when and how to taste the flesh of their enemies. It seems apparent that over a period of time, this practice can provoke pronounced morphological changes in the Kroot. Reports exist of these aliens developing longer limbs, greater muscle mass, chameleonic properties to their skin, or even membranous wings. Eating battlefield carrion is not the only way in which the Kroot strengthen themselves. Many kindreds cut a bloody path across the stars, fighting under many banners and through wildly varying conflicts in which they learn swiftly or else they die. It is not uncommon for Kroot to claim all manner of strange weapons and other potent war gear as payment for their mercenary services, and in preference to any form of coin. After all, the Tau are not the only race in the galaxy with weaponry that the Kroot would gladly wield. Moreover, the predatory skill that such hard-bitten veteran killers develop over time only renders them all the more wily and dangerous upon the field of battle. Another strange facet of the mutable Kroot genome is that their species possesses numerous offshoots. While clearly separate strains, these share not only physical characteristics with their parent species, but also close kinship. Several of them regularly accompany Kroot kindreds into battle. Kroot hounds, for example, are bad-tempered beasts whose keen senses aid them in tracking down prey, and whose beak-like maws can tear through flak-weave armor with ease. The Kroot often release these creatures in hunting packs to maul vulnerable or fleeing foes. Another beast commonly found alongside Kroot troops is the lumbering Krootox, a hulking creature whose broad back serves as a mobile weapons platform. A heavy cannon is strapped to the beast, and a Kroot warrior climbs aboard its mighty haunches to operate the gun. Although not aggressive as a rule, the Krootox will fight ferociously to defend its comrades, whom the beast sees as its herd brothers. Insignia of Empire. The armies of the Tau Empire are magnificent to look upon. Each sept has its own heraldic colors and its own signifying glyph worn proudly by its warriors. With sleek armored soldiery and dynamic battle suits, flanked by strange alien auxiliaries and high-tech gunships, these are armies of melded contrasts that epitomize the wider ethos of the Tau Empire. A regimented system of helm colors and armor markings is evident throughout the Tau Empire, applied uniformly across the armies of every sept. From indications of rank and seniority to signifiers of honor, such as the Talura Serra, bonding ritual, or status as a chosen bodyguard. These sigils convey their meaning to all Tau at a glance. In the same way, the traditional color schemes of each sept are instantly recognizable to their fellows from other regions of the Empire. Not only does this visual standardization help enormously when forming larger coalition forces, but it also carries the weight of proud martial tradition that underpins all Tau military undertakings. With all this said, the Tau are pragmatic enough to recognize that the realities of combat and the priority of preserving lives must come before pomp and ceremony. Thus, many Tau cadres have their armor and vehicles rapidly recolored between war zones in order to adopt camouflage schemes more appropriate to whatever theater they are about to fight in. Such flexibility and common sense aids them greatly in battle.